Is God present even there where there is ignorance? Truth is one and eternal. Realize oneness with it in your deathless self within. The following commentary is based on the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. The Gospel of St. John, chapter 1st, makes a reference of divine light that is obscure to the rational faculty, but that enlightens our higher nature. The light shineth in darkness, and the darkness comprehended it not. Reason recoils from this statement with innumerable questions. What is that darkness? Is it conscious that it should comprehend anything? What sort of light should be capable of shining in darkness without transforming at least that part of the darkness in which it shines into light? Does this light shine only at night? And if so, why only then? The solution is that to divine sight, even daylight, seems darkness. The sun itself, like the moon which shines only by reflected light from the sun, is but a kind of reflection of the cosmic light, which, being immaterial, is invisible to the eyes, but which is the great source of all material reality. In Autobiography of a Yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda describes his youthful visit to Ram Gopal Muzumdar, the sleepless saint, who lived in the vision of that hidden light. Around midnight, Yogananda wrote, Ram Gopal fell into silence, and I lay down on my blankets. Closing my eyes, I saw flashes of lightning. The vast space within me was a chamber of molten light. I opened my eyes and observed the same dazzling radiance. The room became a part of that infinite vault which I beheld with interior vision. Why don't you go to sleep, sir? How can I sleep in the presence of lightning blazing, whether my eyes are shut or open? You are blessed to have this experience. The spiritual radiation are not easily seen. The saint added a few words of affection. This is the light that shineth in darkness. It has been described variously in the great scriptures. In the Bhagavad Gita, the 11th chapter, the devotee Arjuna is given an experience of the infinite state and explains in all, if there should rise suddenly within the skies sunburst of 1,000 suns, flooding earth with beams undeemed of, then might be that Holy One's majesty and radiance dream of. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Thank you, Benedetta, and thank you to the musicians. The spiritual path, in a certain way, or during the spiritual path, there are many aphorisms. These aphorisms are small, short phrases that are like milestones that help you through your path. Meditating through this reading, this aphorism came to me that is very powerful in the yogic world. What is light for a mundane man is night for the yogi. And what is night for the mundane man is day for a yogi. Let's try to understand this phrase. To be able to understand it, we must know the difference between emotion and feeling. this in the Italian language has a difference that is not easy to capture, but it's important to see this. I want to share an episode in my life when I went towards to visit medium, a person that could see past lives. She was in Rome, and I had heard that she was a positive and sincere person, and that's how I felt when I met her. She was a sincere and open-hearted person. So we sat down, and I want to share this story not because I want it to be true, but because it's a nice story to share. So she saw. I asked about my life as a violinist, my career and future, and she says, in a past life, you were the son of a very famous violinist in Italy, and you as well took lessons from your father, and he would teach you well, but at the same time, something in him would obstacle you to be as brilliant as the father was. So there was a little bit of competition that the father would have towards this child. So I was a violinist that had a blockage, a handicap linked to this music. So I had moments of great success with my music, but obviously living in the world of contrast and duality, there were moments where I would have no self-esteem about my music, and this curve of my career was going down. And at one point I could not play as a soloist. So, and at the end I was playing in a orchestra, in a quite famous orchestra, and then in a more simple orchestra of not a lot of quality. And I started to drink. I lived with this frustration, with this handicap, with this limit. I could not manifest through my violin, and I could not realize myself. And then when I was suffering with alcohol problems, and at one point I broke my violin on my knee. And she said, so then she says, and in that moment, when you broke the violin, you realized how much you really had always loved this instrument. How strange if you pass a life with an instrument that you really love, like if you were married to a person that you loved. Why was I unhappy? This love towards my violin was a very deep feeling, and it had always been there. And in that dramatic moment where I had broken this violin on my knee, I realized how much I had always loved it. I had taken it everywhere with me, and I had and even playing it is part of this love, because this instrument has to be played. So, what was this blockage? It was the emotion. What did this emotion represent in this story, in this biography? It represented the need of being recognized, from outward recognition. Firstly from my father, and I'm sure that probably he would have never given it to me, because the nature of our relationship was that he had to be first and he had to be famous, and I could not become famous like him. So my desire was to have a recognition of this father that would have never arrived. But even if it would have, if he would have recognized it, it wouldn't have been enough to give me happiness, because it would have been an external recognition, not from me, from myself. It would have been outward, from a different person. And then, together with this need of recognition of this father, famous violinist, there was this need and to become famous and to have a good reputation. That way I would have been able to go to this father. I would have been able to go to him and say, yes, I have been able to accomplish myself. But you see, music has nothing to do with all of this. It has to do only with my need, my desire of being recognized. It had to do with my ego, in other words. So emotions keep us linked to the world, come from our desires, our needs, the desires of recognition, of fame, and they are imprisoned a part of our heart, creating darkness, lack of consciousness, like not being able to see those deeper emotions that are sentiments that are in our heart, of calmness, of love. So we can see here the difference between emotion and feeling. Gyanamata, it was one of the most advanced disciples of Paramahansa Yogananda, Sister Gyanamata. She would say that when we meditate, we go into the night of the yogi, when we want to go further from the and go through emotional disturbance in our physical body, firstly, that is restless, and then you go further, overcoming our own desires, those things that link us, that attach us to this, going to more deeper feelings. And then she says, when you have meditated, then you go back into the world. And this is what we have to do. We will have to be active, serving the world. And Gyanamata says, if you manage to go to the world without losing this interior contact, this feeling, deeper feeling, then you are doing a good progress as a yogi. What you have realized during the night of your meditation, you bring it out in, she says, in the cold light of the day. That way, without losing connection, this is true progress. Spiritual progress is not measured in meditation itself, but in the capacity of bringing out in the world, without having them being um, uh, touched by the emotions in the relationship of ourselves with the world. At this point, I want to read the first part of a whisper of Master. I'll just read one first part. It says, the name of this whisper is, I will broadcast my voice with the chorus of thy songs. With the soft finger touches of my soul intuition, I tuned the radio of my inner perception. At first, I caught only the sounds of nearby experience. Then came a symphony of inner harmony, followed by sweet strains of my heart's orchestra of finer feelings. So, in this first part, we can see that in the meditation, if we do it at a human level, or that is getting closer to the divine level, it has to do with so much with these deep feelings. What it says, in our heart there are these pure, refined feelings of love, but with our emotions, we can't feel them really. And I want to give examples of how great masters have manifested these deeper feelings. For example, we have Sri Yukteswar. As you know, if you have read the autobiography of a yogi, the first encounter of meeting of Yogananda with his guru, Swami Sri Yukteswar, was a very intense and emotional moment. It was a dramatic moment where, after many lives, a disciple finds his guru. A glorious moment. And also how Sri Yukteswar expresses himself towards his disciple with feelings. You have arrived finally, and with faith and trust that as he is talking to a child, I give you unconditional love, he says. He's talking as a child. I give you unconditional love. And he says, and it's a question that is even more beautiful. Will you promise me that if I could fall from my state of self-realization, you will help me. You will have my head on your lap, and you will help me find my way again. And he lets himself see in a complete vulnerability, without protection. So this feeling, deep feeling, is nude. Then, because of the law of contrasts and the duality, where you know that you have a high, you have a low, then this first encounter ends with a disharmony, because then Sri Yukteswar starts his job and says, okay, Yogananda, the first thing that I want you to do is to go back to your family in home, and that you start to study university again. And he says, no, I don't want. And Sri Yukteswar at that point contains his emotion. He becomes objective, and he says, okay. And they say goodbye, and that moment that was beautiful and gloriful. It ends in a disharmonic way. Then 2 weeks after, 2 months after, I can't remember, he comes back and he starts to his path under Sri Yukteswar's guidance. And after 30 years, in 1935, Yogananda, after being for 15 years in America, he feels the calling from his guru that tells him, I'm about to leave my body, come and visit me. And he goes back to India. And in another chapter that is very beautiful, he says, in one morning, I went to visit my guru and he was alone. And when I saw him, he remembers that it was like if he wanted to run away, because he knew what Sri Yogananda was gonna be ask him. Yogananda asks, I came to you when I was a child. Many years have passed. I have some white hair on my head. Do you realize that only once in all these years you have told me you love me? And what the Sri Yukteswar says, these are deep feelings that express them with words. He talks about the coldness of words. He says there are feelings that are so deep that it's better to keep them in the deepness of your heart, because words would not give justice to what one feels. But Yogananda insists, and he says, I know that you love me, but my mortal ears, my human part, wants to hear this. And so Sri Yukteswar, they both cry, and he expresses his feeling, his deep feelings of love that had always been there, especially in the most difficult moments of incredible discipline, because Sri Yukteswar was a very steel-like discipline man, guru. Even Swami Kriyananda had a similar experience with his guru when he talks in the new path. He says, one day I was feeling I was feeling the lack of having master. He had been in Encinitas for some time, so master had Yogananda was in Encinita giving a discourse, and he asks Yogananda from the car after leaving this conference, tells Swami, I've missed you. He had captured this feeling, and Swami had gone to Encinitas to visit him because of this need and he had captured this feeling, and he answers to Swami saying, I've missed you. So this dimension seems darkness to a mundane man, because these feelings, so deep feelings, can be lost normally. There is in music these songs, pieces of music that are called notturni. Chopin was the most famous to write these pieces. When you listen them, if you listen one of them, you can feel that you are in the rain of deep feelings that can live, that we can understand only from those profound, deep places, in those moments of difficulty of our emotions that represent these feelings. So, with the soft finger touch of my soul intuition, I tuned the radio of my inner perception. At first, I caught only the sounds of nearby experience. Then came a symphony of inner harmony, followed by sweet strains from my heart's orchestra of finer feelings. And then came the swelling chorus of my age-long cravings for thee. All these I caught on the radio of my soul as I kept tuning my perception, waiting to catch the whispers of thy voice, O guardian angel of all souls. With infinite patience, I went on tuning my radio. At last, then, I was almost prepared to give up further trying. Thy song burst upon my heart. Oh, let me broadcast through my every word now the chorus of thy songs. From this dimension, interiorized dimension, that's yogis try every day, at least twice a day, in the morning and evening, to arrive to this noble and fine emotions inside. And that's the soul. The pure soul has its own desires. We are linked to the material world having certain desires. But this is a question of so your energy goes to the realization of this mundane desires, but your soul as well has inner desires. That's the desire of unity with God. So that's where we want to go through our meditation, to understand that all our desires in reality come from one central desire, and that is the desire of your soul that wants to reconnect with the joy and the power, the fountain of life itself. In reality, we are closer than what we imagine. When I was listening Benedetta, I remembered that when I was a child, I would look in the mirror and I would say, who am I? Who am I? And I would ask this question. I would come into like in a type of trance state, and then I answered my sister. I asked my sister, that is 3 years older, have you never asked, do you know who I am? And she would answer, give me my name and the date of birth. But that wasn't what I was looking for. Much later, I discovered Ramana Maharishi that gave this as a technique of development, spiritual development. But even today, if I ask myself looking at the mirror, the answer is not answered, is not changed since I was 7 years. There has been a lot of show coming up and down, a lot of ignorance, moments of more success, moments of being fulfilled, moments of light meditation. But the true self, the true me, has not changed. It's exactly the same since I was 7 years old. So what is our task? Is to explore, to go inward, meditate about on the deepness, deep question, like Yogananda when he was a child. What is there behind shut eyes? And then we should spend time calming our emotions. We have the Hong So technique to calm our heart, to calm our breath. We can, in that calmness, pray with profound and deep feeling. Concentrate on our spiritual eye with willpower. And the more we are concentrating in our spiritual eye, the less the world will have power to draw our feelings or to draw our heart. I would like to say that this is also the message of Kirtani at the beginning of this year. He said, use the technique. She said, use the techniques to contact the inner sound and inner light. Or as we said before, open the mystic keys of awakening. We have it in this ceremony, the mystic keys of awakening. If we practice with energy and honesty, sincerity, with strength, then slowly we will go from an emotional tempest to profound and deep feelings of love. So I would like to end by reading the words of Krishna at the end of the reading of today. If there should rise suddenly within the skies sunburst of 1,000 suns, flooding earth with beams undeemed of, then might be that Holy One's majesty and radiance dreamed of. So this treasure awaits us in the interior night of meditation. Thank you.